Hey guys, it's 10:15 in the morning. I'm thinktanker.meeks, and today's daily vlog is going to be something a little bit different. That used to be my catchphrase. I'm about to show you something special. The pilot episode to Indie Compass, one of the new shows that I'll be launching in the very, very near future. I want to show it off today because I need some critical feedback. Indie Compass, or the show that I've created, is about thinking deeply and critically about video games, analyzing them as art through the traditional methods of art history, and affording video games the same scrutiny that we afford to other more traditionally accepted art forms. But I need some important feedback on some stuff, very specifically the name of the show. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I feel that I really need to rename it. Currently it's called Indie Compass, and that was fine for a while, but with the direction that I've taken the show in recently in its development, I'm not sure it fits anymore. I think it's misleading. Indie Compass is a misleading name because I won't exclusively be talking about indie games anymore. So I want you to watch the pilot episode and help me rename the show. My wife suggested calling it The Game Gallery, like an art gallery but with games, and I've been kicking around MOGA, as in the Museum of Gaming Art, kind of a play on MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. But I know that there are even better names out there, and I know that by coming to you and the communities that you belong to, we can find the best name for this show. Just as a note, I will be refilming everything you're about to see in the pilot. I'll be remaking it from scratch with more B-roll, more images, gameplay footage, more everything. So I don't need feedback on the production values. However, I will be rewriting much of this episode, so any feedback on clarity that you can give me will be very much appreciated. So please watch this pilot episode and leave your feedback and name suggestions in the comments below. Or feel free to contact me on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, email, anything at all. I'd also really appreciate it if you could spread the video around for me to anyone that you think might be interested in this concept at all. That way I can get even more feedback to make the show even better. And if on the off chance that you really like the idea and want to find a way to support it even more, there's a chip-in page that's linked in the doobly-doo below, and that money's going to go to buy a new microphone preamp that I need for better sound quality. Again, thank you so much for watching. Here's the pilot episode, and I hope you enjoy it. You know what's a really useless question?
Is it art?
You know what's a really pointless discussion?
Are video games art?
You know what we're gonna be talking about today?
Are we gonna be talking about it's video games?
Welcome to the somewhat inaccurately named Indie Compass, the show with a reinvented tagline every time. I'm your host, thinktanker.meeks, and this is a show about analyzing video games as art.
But you just said that's a pointless discussion.
Nope, I'm talking about thinking about games as though they already are art, and analyzing them the exact same way that we analyze the beauty and meaning of other accepted art forms. But the question as to whether or not video games are art is a pointless question. Think about it, the question, are video games art, is a question with only two possible answers, yes or no. And once you hear the answer, you're either like, cool, I think that too. Or you're like, you have got to be kidding me. How dare you think differently than me? The problem with this question is that everyone's definition of art is subjective. We all seem to have different personal definitions of what art is. And this makes any discussion about a standardized, universal definition of art completely unproductive. For example, most gamers will remember when Roger Ebert said, video games can never be art. His comments inspired every video gamer to stand up and say,
no, they can too!
Which resulted in over a bajillion hours wasted arguing over semantics. And like all arguments where people use the same words with differing definitions, it was ultimately pointless. Nobody's mind was changed, certainly not Roger Ebert's, and it essentially became stubborn people arguing over the differences in their personal definitions of art. If anything, the argument over whether or not video games qualify as art simply reinforced everyone's differing opinions. Side note, I want to make a subtle distinction between the question, what is art, and is it art? What is art is a question with a nearly limitless number of answers, answers which can inspire, uplift, and teach the hearts of men. These answers are actually interesting because they can tell us a lot about ourselves, about artists, about our beliefs, about our purpose as humans, and about our cultural context. But the question, is it art, assumes that art is a predetermined checklist. It excludes new possibilities and implies that there's a universal standard that defines what can and can't be labeled as art.
Well, everything seems in order, yeah. Actually, it looks like you missed the paint checkbox. There's no paint, is there? Yes. And it's not exactly sculpture, is it? You can't really call it art, can you? You don't happen to be named after one of the Ninja Turtles, do you?
The question, what is art, explores the many facets of the undefinable. It allows for meaningful discussion as each artist throughout history brings something new to the artistic table. It's as if each piece of art is a single musical note. Alone, it may be beautiful and it may convey a single, even important message, but when analyzed together, the whole history of artwork comes together to form a great symphony that helps us feel what art is, what it can be, and why it is important to the human soul. It's millions of notes from millions of artists all coming together to form a grand symphony to reveal another side of an infinitely sided object. For example, the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. There is only one valuable thing in art, the thing you cannot explain. If I could say it in words, there would be no reason to paint. Anyone who says you can't see a thought simply doesn't know art. Art is the only way to run away from home without leaving home. Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time. The purpose of art is washing the dust of daily life off our souls. Life beats down and crushes the soul, and art reminds you that you have one. These statements seek to explore what art is, or at least what it can be, but they don't try to limit what form it can take, and they don't try to force it into a predetermined set of notions or exclusive sterile definitions. Roger Ebert's argument that video games can never be art stemmed from a personal definition of what art is, a definition that he assumed was a universality. His argument infers that there are concrete definitions of what art is, that there are requirements and limiting factors that restrict what can and can't be labeled art. His argument infers that we already know what art is. And frankly, it's not a new argument. We see this all the time throughout art history. A new art form or artistic style isn't accepted as art by members of society, yet over time, the collective perception of art changes as the new art form proves that it has the power to touch the human soul. For example, the word Baroque was initially used as a derogatory term describing the style of excessive ornamentation that it later came to represent. Vincent van Gogh, goth, was never accepted as a reputable artist. His artistic style was ridiculed his entire life, but now the world at large and at least one professor in an episode of Doctor Who believe he's now possibly one of the greatest artists of all time. And almost all forms of modern art, from Picasso's Cubism to the art of photography to architecture to Jackson Pollock's abstract expressionist drip paintings to Banksy's contemporary graffiti, have all had to fight to be considered art. Right now, video games are fighting the same battle that Georges Méliès fought when creating early films, and we're trying to break out of the restrictive definition of video games as merely entertainment and move to them being an accepted art form. So Roger Ebert, you can feel safe in the knowledge that you'll hold the same place as the detractors of Van Gogh. A footnote in the annals of video game history. If you can't tell by now, I very passionately believe that video games are art, but comparing personal definitions doesn't get us anywhere. Which brings us to Indie Compass. Indie Compass is a weekly YouTube show dedicated to analyzing video games as art. Not in an is it art checklist kind of way, but not in a this game gets a 7.5 out of 10 kind of way either. Indie Compass will attempt to critically analyze video games as art by asking more important questions. What can we learn from this? How does this make me feel? Does this move me? What is this game trying to say, and how does it say it? Why is its message important, or is it even important at all? And what does that mean for video games? What themes does it explore, and in what ways? How does this fit into the cultural context in which it was created? At its heart, Indie Compass is an educational show inspired in part by Crash Course, SciShow, Extra Credits, Zay Frank, and Wheezy Waiter. It's what those shows would be if they focused exclusively on art history and video games. Maybe. Probably not. Maybe. Indie Compass will use art concepts and art history to analyze video games both individually and as a whole. Indie Compass will dig deeper into the art of video games by drawing parallels with other works of art, some contemporary and some classical or ancient. And most importantly, Indie Compass will show the world that thinking deeply about video games will not only make video games more enjoyable and entertaining and rewarding, but it will also enrich your life. Hold up. Why'd you call it Indie Compass? Explain! I want to partially focus on studying independently developed video games as art. Now, indies aren't inherently more artistic than any AAA titles, but indies are more willing to take larger risks, and I believe they'll provide ample material for critical analysis. Also, I'll be talking about the uselessness of labels like indie and AAA in a future episode, so don't get comfy! I'm never comfy. I guess the final question is, why? What's the ultimate purpose of Indie Compass? Simply put, I'm making Indie Compass because I want to change the world. I'm sick and tired of being looked down upon and judged by others whenever they find out that I play video games. I'm sick of the meaningful, fun, and sometimes even life-changing experience that I've had playing video games being tossed aside and esteemed as a thing of naught, as a frivolous and pointless pursuit, as a waste of time. I'm sick of it. These are incredibly common reactions that are intrinsically linked with the cultural perception of video games. And these cultural perceptions are not going to change themselves. Martin Luther King said that human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. I want to be one of those dedicated individuals, and Indie Compass is my tireless exertion, my passionate concern. I really believe in the video game community. I believe in the YouTube community, and I believe that we can come together to change the world's perceptions of who gamers are and what video games can be. It all starts here, when we all decide to think deeper. That's what Indie Compass is about. That by looking at video games as art, we can reach out and touch the hearts of gamers and non-gamers alike. Because ultimately, we as a people, as a community, and as a culture, decide what is and isn't art. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Indie Compass is produced, edited, written, and turned into magic ones and zeros by myself and my lovely wife, Eliza Meeks, who provides the art history expertise, and she thought her degree was useless. If you have any comments, questions, or want to suggest a game, a piece of artwork, or artistic theme to analyze on the show, Indie Compass is on Facebook, Twitter, you can email me, and of course, there's the comments below. Indie Compass is produced, edited, written, and turned into magic ones and zeros by myself and my lovely wife, Eliza Week. That's a wrap. That is a wrap. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, we're done here. So there it is, the pilot episode for my new show, Name Untitled, currently. Please help me. Leave your feedback and name suggestions in the comments below, or contact me anywhere online. Most importantly, I need a new name for it. Please help me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. End screen song. I'll see you tomorrow. There's a chip in page in the Dinkly Dink.